The ending of Game of Thrones fared pretty well for the Starks. Literally every single one of them is in a position of power or in a position where they chose to put themselves, being Jon or Arya. But Daenerys, my queen, the, in my eyes, rightful ruler of the Seven Kingdoms and the one person who is to thank for this democracy and the wheel being broken, was never really quite served justice. Now, you could argue that Jon being sent to the wall was some form of justice, but in all actuality, Jon Snow never wanted the Iron Throne, and sending him to the wall just made sure that that would never happen. In this video, I want to discuss what may have gone down when Drogon flew off with Daenerys' body. Everyone said he was spotted flying east, and we all know that there's a temple in Volantis in the east that is the largest temple dedicated to R'hllor. And the followers of R'hllor are super famous for several things, one of them being resurrection. Now, as always, let's begin. Now, before we get started, please slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 10,420. Also, this is the most important part. Make sure you're subscribed. Now that the long night is officially here, I promise that I will continue to make a Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones content pretty much forever. Also, make sure every notification's turned on, so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a video. Long nights. Now, before we really get into the premise of, or the idea, my ideas of what actually happened to Daenerys' body and what may happen, I want to talk a bit about the spin-offs, because I feel like whatever successor show we get that comes out after Game of Thrones, if it's not a direct spin-off of a Game of Thrones, then it's going to hint at sort of what the fate of Daenerys may be. Now, obviously, it could take place in the past, but one idea that I brought up during my live stream and also on my Game of Thrones Season 8 finale breakdown, speaking of which, you can click right here for the live stream, and you can also click right here for the Episode 6 Explained video. But anyway, what I mentioned briefly in those videos, I'm going to sort of expand on here. Now, I think there could be a potential for this spin-off series. You know, it's being called The Long Night, and now it's supposedly being switched to being called Blood Moon, but the cast is still the same, has been ordered to shoot a pilot. They haven't ordered a series yet, but one way I was thinking they could sort of finagle in, Daenerys' ending into this is, of course, it takes place in the past, but since we're going to be over in Essos, we get to explore more of the ancient secrets of Essos. With George R. R. Martin having such a heavy hand in this new successor show, I'm pretty sure the lore and expansion of A Song of Ice and Fire history will take place in this show. I feel like with his hand in the pot, there's going to be less creative decision making that people who didn't actually write the story take, and George is going to make sure it's told in a way in which it reflects how great his novels are. Like, for instance, part of the premise of this new spinoff is going to be Naomi Watts' character is supposed to play a socialite with a deep dark secret. Now, let's say that's over in Essos, and part of her secret is that she somehow lives forever. Maybe there's some sort of, now this is just highly speculation here, and when I put it into fan fiction format, it'll be a lot more poetic, but what if there's some sort of way that a person could extend their life way past what their actual age would, oh wait, shit, Melisandre did that, and she's from Essos. And I feel like if they do choose to destine this show in Essos instead of in Westeros, then one of the major cities that they could show a lot of would be Volantis. That's got one of the highest populations of the free cities, and also, if they did choose to include Volantis, then that would give us the feeling of King's Landing, but also the architecture is different, so it'll give us that similar nostalgia for Game of Thrones, but also something a little bit new and exciting. Maybe they choose to focus on the Temple of R'hllor for one episode, and in it we see how the Red Priest and Priestesses bring people back over there for maybe a certain fee. Well, if that's the case, then we could all insinuate that this is where Drogon flew off with Daenerys. Dragons are in fact extremely intelligent in this universe, and just to sort of reiterate from my last video, he knew exactly what happened between Jon Snow and Daenerys. He knew that Jon was in love with Daenerys and that he didn't kill her for no reason. He killed her for the Iron Throne. Drogon knew this and decided his final action would be to burn down the Iron Throne so no one could ever sit it. I swear, dragons in this universe are of a higher intelligence. It takes something not of a human level to just look past the point of that. I mean, it's similar to like when my cousin got shot as a kid. As all of us being young, we got mad at, the people who actually did it, the gang that was involved in it. When all actuality, I had several people explain to me that it's not necessarily the people that caused it, but the environment, the way they were brought up. And this is pretty much what Drogon did. He knew that the actual pursuit for the Iron Throne is what killed Daenerys. Jon Snow laying that that dagger through her belly and into her heart is not, it's not okay. I don't even know why I said that like that. It just got me all emotionally. Just moving on and getting back on track, Drogon knew the right thing to do in those moments. And the fact that he sort of played the judge and jury on Jon Snow and decided that the Iron Throne was guilty for the death of Daenerys leads me into believing that the reason why he took her body was in hopes to resurrect her and bring her back. He's a dragon. He knows that magic exists in this world, and he's actually, in my opinion at least, most likely aware of Jon Snow's resurrection. And I did see a lot of people saying that the reason why he decided to not burn Jon is because Jon is unburnable. He knew that he was a Targaryen and he couldn't actually set him on fire. No, the only reason why Daenerys didn't burn is because she was using blood magic to make sure that the fire didn't harm her. Jon doesn't know how to do that, and he definitely would have died if Drogon had melted his ass. And you know what? We're a good ways into this video, and it is based on Daenerys. So I just want to say, Emilia Clarke, if you ever watch this, or if anyone you know ever sees this and tells you about it, thank you for doing what you did to this character of Daenerys Stormborn. I mean, I've been upset about losing people before, but never for a fictional world. Last night, after making the video and doing that live stream, I couldn't go to sleep. I literally stayed up till like 11:30 in the morning just thinking of many different ways that you could be brought back, or just waiting for some sort of article to be posted saying, look, Dan and Dave did an interview with Emilia Clarke and she is dead, but there's a chance that she could be brought back and maybe she'll be mentioned as one of the actors or actresses for the spinoff. Obviously that's not going to happen, but that's part of the stages of grief that I was going through. The denial. I refused to believe that it actually happened, and then that's when I realized that there's really no chance to ever see her again on screen, and that just made me start crying again. So I just want to say it one more time. Thank you, Emilia, Isabel, Euphemia, Rose, Clarke. While I may not agree with every single writing direction they took with her in this last season, you did an amazing job of bringing this character to life and pulling off something that really has never been done before. I mean, your character starting out being forced into something that she never really wanted and then ended up getting raped in the process, came up from literally nothing into the greatest queen the Seven Kingdoms have ever seen. And I know there's probably several people watching this video that are like, hey man, stop dick riding. You've done it for like 3 minutes now, but listen here. If you're upset that Emilia, or Daenerys rather, burned King's Landing to the ground, one thing you have to realize is that Bran, who is currently the new king of the Seven Kingdoms, had to have seen this happen and just let it happen. Bran the Broken can see the past, future, and the present, so there's no way he didn't know that Daenerys would basically nuke King's Landing. He knew that that had to happen in order for the wheel to be broken and in order for this newly found democracy to be installed into the capital of Westeros. But you know, just to sort of change the subject and calm myself down a little bit, one way that I see maybe the prequel series going down is sort of hinting at what Daenerys' fate may be in the lightest sense of the word. I mean, we do know that she's dead, but that could sort of hint at what Drogon did with her body. Is in the spinoff, it was initially going to be called, you know, The Long Night, which was going to take place at the very end of the Age of Heroes. Now, the thing is, we literally just saw a modern day, so to speak, version of the Age of Heroes throughout the entirety of Game of Thrones. All 8 seasons was a giant hero's journey, and almost every single person alive at the end, Jon, Arya, Sansa, Daenerys, Bran, well, Daenerys for the most part, is a hero that will be listed in the history books as the saviors of their time. So what if instead of a spin-off, we get a successor show that's very similar to what just happened in Westeros, except for it takes place at another place in another time, but characters who existed, like Arya, Bran, Jon Snow, Sansa, Daenerys, Samwell, they all had their counterparts in the first Age of Heroes, so maybe this show takes place right after the first Age of Heroes when all those heroes have died, and it sort of just feels very reminiscent, or what it would be in Game of Thrones after Sam, Jon, Daenerys, and everyone else has already died in Westeros. Maybe this new show will sort of take place right after that, making it feel somewhat like a successor show, but completely new and fresh, as the formula would have changed. Now, speaking of formula changing, one thing that I forgot to mention in my live stream on my last breakdown video was that this ending had a bunch of Lord of the Rings shoutouts. Now, the fact of all the Starks sort of getting on ships and heading in different directions, that's very reminiscent of Aragorn, Gimli, Frodo, and Gandalf all getting on the boats to go off to the never-ending or never-dying lands. And then Drogon destroying the Iron Throne was a giant callback to Frodo destroying the Ring of Power. Drogon realized in those moments that the Iron Throne does nothing but corrupt people and make them power hungry. So him melting down the Iron Throne was very reminiscent of Frodo throwing the Ring of Power into the fires of Mount Doom. And Daenerys, like Smeagol, became corrupt corrupted to the point of no return by power itself. She died in pursuit of the Iron Throne, just like Smeagol in pursuit of the Ring of Power. But just sort of getting back onto the main point of this video, now that I've had time to think about it and I've watched the episode several times, I actually think that this was a beautiful ending and they kind of couldn't have done it any better. We all know we had to lose Jon or Daenerys, and me being a super massive fan of Daenerys, I was pretty heartbroken when she died. I couldn't see past my own anger and realized that the writing in this episode was actually on fucking point. And no, I don't agree with every single direction they took, but overall, this ending was pretty phenomenal. If I put my bias aside, then Daenerys, being the Mad Queen, has had foreshadowing this entire series. Everything she does to sort of put herself in a better position, while she doesn't mean to intentionally harm the innocent, it does sort of seem as though it's becoming more and more drastic. She ended up falling in love with the power that she took to give her her true destiny, and that's what ultimately destroyed her. The fact that Jon Snow, who was the one man that still loved her left in the world, was the one to do it was really beautiful. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I do believe that Drogon had a plan with Daenerys' corpse, and he flew her off somewhere to potentially, hopefully, get resurrected. There's a chance that he could fly her directly to the Temple of Atlantis, and all those red priests, out of all of them there, and priests and priestesses, one of them has to have the ability to resurrect the woman they chose to fulfill the prophecy. Maybe in the end, Daenerys does come back and realize that she lost so much that she should have never left to Westeros to begin with. She should have ruled in the Bay of Dragons, and we have to remember this is where her people are actually from. Valyrians originally hailing from Essos. She was more accepted and more welcomed there, and she would have never had to do something like burn a city to the ground just to put herself in a position of power to help everyone. Maybe if she does come back, she decides to stay there and rule with Dario. Now, like I have mentioned before, I do plan on writing a bunch of Drogon and Daenerys fan fiction and picking up with the premise that Daenerys was in fact resurrected, and I want to start by, you know, sort of writing the first few episodes of it, of Daenerys building up her army to go back and take the Seven Kingdoms. So you all let me know down below if that's something that you would be interested in, and if you will be, leave a comment and I'll get started on it right away. I've actually already written the first few episodes, and it starts with Daenerys heading straight to the north to go and kill Jon. Basically, Daenerys becomes the Lady Stoneheart in my story. Alright, and with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could please slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 10,420. Also, make sure to subscribe. The long night is here, and I will continue to entertain you all throughout this long night. Also, make sure every notification's turned on, so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a video. Super special shout out to every single person watching, and a super special thank you to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/Reviews. I want to thank you all again so much for watching. My name's Mark and Spencer Hunts Reviews.